Hello, everybody. I am Eloise from HR Prime, and I would like to introduce you to the lovely Sarah. Sarah, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about yourself and the services you provide at Halcyon Women's Health, please.
I'd love to. Hello, my name is Sarah Darwin. Yes, my company it's Halcyon Women's Health, um, but we do services for everybody. Now, it's really interesting that we're going to have this discussion today because I think there's a lot of sort of misconceptions around women's health. So the services we offer vary. We do anything from standalone lunch and learn workshops right the way through to ongoing support packages. And it covers pretty much everything in the women's health strategy. And it's it's been a bit of a learning curve doing the prep for the interview because women's health is my absolute life. I kind of forget that women's health as a title suggests that it's for women.
Yeah.
But we actually offer services for everybody. So the company is actually, there's two strands to the company. I've been a therapist for many, many years. So I started my company originally in 2008, and it was selfishly just to help myself in the early days. So I have endometriosis. I was diagnosed with endo in my mid-20s. And I went down the normal pathway, the NHS pathway. And I got told, because I wasn't getting any lasting relief from all of the treatments, that the next step would be surgery, and I just didn't want surgery. So selfishly, which is a good thing, I started to learn different therapies to treat myself. And then friends and family started to see how well I was doing or how much better I was doing, and they started to ask for treatments. And then people started to pay me, and then Halcyon was born. So that's essentially why I started doing what I was doing. And I did this alongside a career. So I had like a proper job for many, many years, just treating women. Well, no, that's not true, actually. I was treating all sorts, because the way that I work as a therapist is very much around the mind-body connection and how sort of stress, anxiety, emotional issues show up in our bodies, but also how physical issues can mess with our emotional well-being as well. And I ended up sort of being really successful treating injuries and all sorts. So at one point I was a physio for a local football club, which was great fun. I was treating builders and all sorts of people. And then I went full-time doing that in about 2017. I think it was 2018, around about there. But up until that point, like I say, I'd been doing it alongside. I'd been doing the two careers. So I had a career in local government and charity management, and I was doing the therapies alongside that in the evenings and weekends. Then went full time, and then COVID hit, and I had to shut my clinic doors, as everybody did. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't just me.
No.
And then I came out of spent lots of money on business coaches. There was so much of that in lockdown, wasn't there? And all these people claiming to be coaches and this, that, and the other. And did a lot of rethinking. Came out of COVID thinking, do you know what? I love doing what I'm doing, but I was kind of treating, I think, probably about 90% women at that point. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to make it formal. I'm just going to really say, I'm done working with men, in inverted commas. I'm done working with builders. I'm done working with footballers. I want to focus on women's health. I want to go back to where I started from. And that's when I just started to sort of talk about menopause, endometriosis, all that kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, why don't we as women are notoriously bad at prioritizing our own well-being?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, when I was really struggling, what would have actually been most impactful for me? And it was like, well, actually, the thing that made it worse at the time was work.
Mm-hmm.
I had sort of two employers around the time when my endometriosis was really bad. The first employer was fabulous. They were brilliant. They had flexible working policies. They understood the concept of how, when you're feeling well, you work better. And I was given a lot of flexibility when I was going through so essentially, as part of the treatment program for endometriosis, they induced the menopause.
Yeah.
So I was going through that with this employer, and the support they gave me was fabulous. Flash forward, the next employer, not not quite as understanding, and
Yeah.
it made everything 10 times worse, probably more than 10 times worse. It made everything really, really difficult. So I kind of sat back and just thought, you know what, that support at that time from the employer would have made a world of difference. I can probably help more women and more people going into company to raise awareness of these conditions and offer the support that I offer to women, but via workplaces. So that's essentially how the second strand of the business was born. And that's now my primary focus. So I kind of go into companies, and like I say, we offer anything from standalone lunch and learn workshops,
Yeah.
right the way through to ongoing full-on support. And the ongoing full-on support is things like we do health clinics, so that we can either run these specifically for organisations, or I do a generic one that people can kind of buy places on, and literally people can come and talk about their symptoms or symptoms of somebody they love. So I've had plenty of men come to my clinics and plenty of men come to my sessions asking questions about menopause because somebody they love is going through it, or pregnancy journeys, fertility journeys, because they're going through it with their partners. And those sessions are recorded as well. They don't have to turn up live. They can ask questions on email and I answer them. So there's the self-treatment e-learning programs where everything, like as the name suggests, is pre-recorded, and they get lifetime access, and that's licensed to companies. So an employee can, free of charge, can register for the e-learning program. They understand about their symptoms, they understand natural ways of managing their symptoms, and it keeps them in work and happy for longer. And also I do a rest, relax and reset session, and I get the name wrong every single time I do it. Something like that. It's those 3 words. It's just
Which way it's round. Yeah.
the order I say it changes. Yeah. And we do them, which is a monthly, it's like either a meditation or a mindfulness session as well. And that's around stress management. Most of what I do is general well-being. So it's around hormonal balance, but a
Yeah.
lot of that is just about tackling stress. So yeah, that's me.
Very inspiring. It made me go cold, your story, and that was a good feeling in
Oh,
that sense. And it's good what you're doing for like the awareness for women, and even into, like you said, with partners, etc. When I initially read your website, as we discussed, I felt it was very focused on women, but you're not. You're looking at the broader perspective, which is really good, and men supporting their partners, like you said, and or a loved one, and helping them through that journey. So it really brings a great awareness to both sides in that sense, and it's really inspiring. Um,
oh,
okay,
thank you.
so I mean, I could probably learn some stuff myself for my well-being. I mean, every woman has their hormonal issues, don't they? And it sounds like a
Yeah.
very good e-learning courses as well, and kind of those programs sound really interesting. Um,
Oh,
okay,
thank you.
so I'm going to ask you a few questions. So, what are the key challenges that you've identified when it comes to businesses and supporting women's health at work? And how is your company addressing those, Sarah?
Awesome question. It kind of links into what we've already talked about, and it's something that I was really naive to when I started this journey, this corporate journey. And that is the challenge really is getting people to realise that it's an issue in the first place. That women are taking time off work, and we'll come to a secondary question, I know, in a second, but that women are taking time off work because of their periods.
Yeah.
I've had so many questions, especially in the early days when I was I was quite militant about it, I suppose. And I would do these presentations and just say, women are taking time off. And I was having people, MDs of companies, coming to me and saying, no, they're not. We've checked the stats. We haven't got anybody taking any time off for menopause or periods or baby loss, anything. It's just not happening. And I couldn't understand, because I knew women were, because I've treated women. I did a survey before I started on this journey. I did a survey with my clinic clients, and 100%, and it's not a representative survey at all, because these are all women who are really struggling with their periods or with kind of menstrual health. But all of them, 100%, said that they had taken unnecessary time off work. And when I asked for examples, it was things like, the one example I always use because it's so striking, there was one lady who was experiencing flooding. So flooding, for people who don't know, flooding is when you get a lot of blood And it can be unpredictable, it can be as part of your period, but there's nothing you can do. It literally just, as the name suggests, floods out of you. And she used to get really bad flooding.
Right.
Sorry, say that again.
I suppose that then can lead to anemia in that sense, that too much blood loss and iron loss in there.
Yes, yes, exactly. So she was struggling with fatigue, she was struggling with anemia. Oh, hang on, sorry, you've disappeared off my screen. Just bear with me 2 seconds. She was struggling with exactly as you said. She was struggling with anemia, she was struggling with fatigue. But the main reason why she was taking unnecessary time off work was because, I can't get you back on my screen, I don't know where you've gone, was because of embarrassment and shame, because she was, well, and anxiety. She was really struggling with the worry that she would flood at work. And there was no pattern to her absences because she used to get flooding in between her periods. So it wasn't like every 4 weeks she would be taking time off. The actual reality was, in the meeting room at her workplace, they had white chairs, they had white leather chairs, cream leather chairs actually, and she was so anxious that she would bleed on these chairs and stay in the chairs that every time she had a meeting organised for this meeting room, she'd ring in sick because she couldn't stand the thought. She was so anxious about the thought.
Yeah.
So that's one of the examples that I started to give. I was like, we don't talk about these things, the shame around periods and the shame around bleeding. We just don't talk about it. And the same when we come to baby loss, men are actually more likely to take time off work following the loss of a pregnancy or the loss of a baby than women are, because men feel completely, well, not all men, but a lot of men feel completely unheard because a lot of conversations are about their partner and they're worrying about their partner, and their family and their colleagues are asking about their partner. Nobody's actually talking to them. But when I started really giving these examples in conversations and in workshops, people started coming back to me. HR managers started coming back and said, do you know what, we don't even record. There isn't even a section in our drop-down menu to record for absence due to menstrual health, absence due to menopause, absence due to all of the stuff you're talking about, domestic violence, sexual harassment. These aren't just women's health issues. They do impact on the whole workforce, and there weren't even the facility to record. So the absences were going completely under the radar. So there was people, rightly so, they were saying, look, I don't understand. You're telling me women are taking time off. You're telling me people are taking time off. But stats aren't saying that. Mm-hmm. And then when I went back to the survey that we did in 2021, it was just before I sort of went completely corporate, if you will. When the women were saying that they were taking time off, unnecessary time off, they were actually saying that they were ringing in either citing migraines or bad tummy as the reason why they were ringing in sick. So if you go back and have a look at your migraine or headache, whatever it is on your drop-down system, or stomach upset, have a look to see if there's any patterns there. Are they every 4 weeks? Are they every time somebody's got a meeting in a certain room? If you work remotely, or if you work not remotely, but if you're kind of peripatetic, if you're going out to different places, is there issues with sort of toilet facilities? Do you provide free period products in your toilet?
Yeah.
And once you start having those deeper conversations, that's kind of how I've been getting around the challenge of people acknowledging there's a problem. But it's really hard to, if the stats aren't showing, and rightly so, HR have got such massive jobs, haven't they, in terms of well-being especially. It isn't always high on the priority. And if a staff member is taking time off sick, then they just go on the stats, which is completely understandable. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing, if I can say anything today, is check that there is a little thing in the drop-down menu for when somebody rings in. Is there something to do with menopause? Not everybody's that bothered. Not everybody's interested in sort of the reason behind people being off. But if it is something that your company focus on, are you recording the women's health aspect, in inverted commas, women's health aspect of health, to see actually whether it is a problem or not?
A lot of companies probably wouldn't, like you said, probably don't think, oh, I'm having issues with my period, etc. And they'll call in and say it is a tummy bug. So like you said, you wouldn't have the statistics there. But if there is a kind of route that people can have that, so they can look at the statistics and look at the patterns and see if there's any regular occurrences, then you'll kind of understand the workplace and who's going through what situation, and HR should be able to help or support in that sense. But when with a company with your like yourself,
Yeah.
where they don't have the time, having that well-being kind of person or expert in that field is really beneficial to companies, to help support the workforce in that sense.
Yeah, massively. Because part of when we talk about sort of the shame, especially like the example of that lady who didn't want to go into the meeting room, period shame starts at such a young age. You know, we hide our period products up our sleeve because we don't want people to know. We kind of we never well, I don't know, it's probably changed in the, I'm not going to say how many years it is since I was at school, but the education I don't think has changed that much in terms of how we're taught about periods. In my day it was really bad. All the girls went off to one room and all the boys went off to another, and it was seen as something dirty and something that we don't talk about.
Yeah,
And that's starting to change.
it
That
is.
has shifted, but still at work it's seen as a bit of a taboo subject.
Yeah,
um, and until we can get rid of that shame, and this is a societal issue, not just an HR issue, but until we can get rid of that shame about talking about periods, it's really actually quite difficult for somebody to ring in and say, do you know what, I can't come in today because I've bloated 3 sizes
yeah,
since I got up this morning and I just can't fit into my trousers.
yeah,
It's embarrassing for people. So just having those conversations, having somebody like me to even just to come and do a one-off workshop to talk about periods. And I always follow up with resources, whatever the company are happy to have. I always follow up with conversation starting resources as well, so that even if it's just a poster on the back of a door, or put free period products in the toilets so women don't have to scratch around for however much they are now, £2 coin or whatever. Have period products in the bathroom, have cardigans on the back of doors so that if somebody does flood they can just pop a cardigan on.
yeah.
Things like this just reassure women.
I 100% agree with you. I've been through that whole journey myself, and there's so many times that you get caught out, and you're like, "Oh my God, it's like not due now, and it's a week late, a week early," and it's like, "Oh, I'm in a situation. I'm in the middle of London. I need something right now." So, yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so
Yeah, thank you. And it is just about talking about it, isn't it?
it is, and talking about it's getting the awareness out and feeling comfortable with yourself, and it is natural. And I know things, people have different scenarios of it, and I've always gone through like a heavy menstrual cycle, and I've got hormone issues myself, and I've really struggled with it myself, and I can connect in that sense. And I've been through the anemia situations, and it's not nice. It isn't nice.
Yeah.
I can actually relate to that lady with the white leather chairs, because I used to work for a company with white leather chairs all the time, and I used to feel that same anxiety
Wow.
on them, and it was not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's great that you do something like that to bring kind of the awareness out in a workshop, and kind of get employers to understand like how women feel. Some people won't feel comfortable to talk about it, and having that natural ability like yourself, people will feel comfortable to have those conversations, which is good.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so. I hope it's because you feel daft as well, don't you? You feel daft saying, "No, you've got white chairs. I can't come into that meeting room. You've got white chairs." You feel like such an idiot, but it's
No,
such,
it is.
yeah,
Honestly, everything in my old company was white, crisp, clean, glass doors, and yeah, it was just yeah. I can
yeah,
connect with that lady. Really can connect. Okay, so the
yeah,
next question. Um, kind of gone through this question, so I maybe just reiterate on it a little bit again. So, what educational resources or workshops do you provide to raise awareness about women's health issues? So, you've got your workshops, you've got your e-learning kind of online, is it online courses
yeah,
pre-recorded? Um, that
yeah, yeah,
to businesses and do workshops with companies as well. Okay, so
yeah.
you kind of touch base on that. So if I go on to the next question then, how does your company
Mhm.
promote physical well-being for women, including access to wellness programs, fitness or nutrition resources?
Yeah, I love this question. So, one of the things we don't do is break it down into um, exercise or supplements is something I always get asked about. Will you come and talk to me about supplements? Will you come and talk to my team about supplements? It's like, no, no, I won't, because we don't. Every everybody's different, and the way that we work, it's very much based on me as a therapist. So I can't shake this kind of um, this kind of approach, which I suppose isn't a bad thing, but we're very much looking at prevention from the first element. So when we talk about women's health, and I suppose when we're talking about the physical aspects, it tends to be things like endometriosis and menopause and all the physical symptoms, polycystic ovaries, all the physical symptoms we're getting. But when I'm running workshops sort of around fertility as well, and well, I suppose everything, it's looking at the physical symptoms that that individual's getting. So I can give generic advice, but my generic advice tends to be don't take generic advice. I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot a little bit. um, so my generic advice to people is always drink loads of water,
Yeah.
keep hydrated. The more hydrated you are, the better your body functions. I'm just giving away essentially what's in all my e-learning programs here, but drink plenty of water. Move. So I don't talk about exercise because I know that for someone, especially if you're struggling with symptoms, then exercise is the last thing you want to do. So I talk about movement. Just get more movement into your day. That even could just be a massage, a stomach massage. Just get your blood flowing in some sort of way. Just move more. Don't take over the counter supplements. Go and get a proper consultation with a herbal medicine practitioner or somebody who's properly licensed to do supplements. A lot of the supplement world is around sales. At the minute, it's gone very salesy, and the people are trained in sales rather than well-being. So be very, very careful about who you're taking advice from. But so kind of, I give that kind of general advice in all of the webinars. So the workshops that I run are designed for managers to spot issues, so physical issues, emotional issues, patterns in behaviour that suggest people are struggling. But they're also designed to give practical and actionable tips, not just for managers in terms of managing people, but for people who are struggling themselves. So I will always just give sort of these general sort of bits of advice in the workshops, and then if companies want to then use the e-learning programs, that's where the real sort of
learning
advice comes from.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and we talk about trauma. I talk a lot about trauma. I talk a lot about stress, about emotional stuff, and how that impacts on our physical symptoms. So when I give support around the physical elements, it tends to be so I talk about symptoms, triggers, and causes. We look at the symptoms. So managing the physical symptoms would be things like massage, acupuncture. I give acupressure points. So if you're struggling with X, do these acupoints, use these reflexology points. Then we look at triggers. So what's triggering your bloating? What's triggering your pain? What's triggering your heavy bleeds? Why are they happening? And then we start to address that. That's kind of where the trauma comes in, and the emotional stress and the emotional sort of symptoms, if you will. And then if people want to, with the e-learning programs, they can look at the causes as well. So what's causing it all in the first place? And that's where the prevention stuff comes in. So we do a lot. Some of it's by stealth. So the workshops that I run, the lunch and learn workshops, that's kind of by stealth, because everything is either 3 or 5 actionable tips that people can do if they're struggling. And then the really in-depth stuff comes with the clinics where people can come and ask questions, or the self-treatment programs as well. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, and things like, so we cover, so the workshops, we cover things like fertility and IVF, baby loss, sexual harassment as well. So it's looking at how those kind of topics, they're all covered in the women's health strategy. And although they're not women's health as such, it's because women are disproportionately impacted by these kind of issues, domestic violence, domestic abuse. So we also look at the physical impact as well as the emotional impact that this has, because quite often it's easier for people to recognize in themselves, but in others, the physical signs that something's going on as well.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about how to sort of address or support people going through that as well. I should say as well that the workshops that we do, so I can either go into companies, but for smaller companies as well. I've been a bit behind this year because, like everybody else, I think I had that flu at the beginning of the year. So I'm running massively behind. I set all these plans. I was so good at setting all these plans at the end of last year. And then the first few weeks of January, I was just like wiped out.
We caught it twice. Oh. Ow.
Same, and the second time was even worse, wasn't it? It was really bad. So much for my prevention. Honestly, I'm really healthy. It just floored me. Um, but yeah, so they're CPD accredited, all of these workshops, and I'm actually just getting the schedule for this year up and running. So I do actually run them as standalone sessions that companies can buy places on for if you want to send just one or two staff members. So they're going to start next month. I think I'm starting with menopause and women's health next month. Then I think baby loss. I can't remember the schedule after that. But if people do want to attend, and for the group members as well, there's going to be a 15% discount as well. So I'll do a code that gives everybody in your group 15% off those as well.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. I think people would love that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
How do they do that? Is that literally going onto the website? Is or onto your page on LinkedIn?
Yes, so there will be, she says confidently, they will be on LinkedIn. Be on the website. The website's actually just undergoing a bit of change at the moment. We're redoing all our systems and everything behind the scenes. And it's not, again, that's not gone quite as quickly as I wanted it to. So they will be up on the website at some point. And I will send them over to you guys. I'll send them to Tracy and put them in the group as well.
Perfect. Brilliant. Exciting. Okay, so with regards to I think you've answered this question as well about educational resources. Um, do you offer mental health support programs that specifically address issues often faced by women? I know we've kind of touched base on anxiety, but finding that balance between the anxiety and work-life balance, do you have specific programs for that, tailored to that?
Yes, I do. So I have one of the self-treatment programs is called 41 Days to Fabulous. And it's 41 days of well-being tasks. Sounds a bit trite, but actually that's all around managing stress and anxiety. And in my world, sort of raising your vibrations. So something every day to get you happy. And you get lifetime access to that as well. So that's kind of the main. There will be other ones coming as well. There's going to be anxiety programs and all sorts of meditation bundles and stuff. They are going to be going live in the next couple of months. But also something that we launched at the back end of last year's employee wellbeing support program. And it was actually one of our women's health retainer clients that liked what we did so much and seen so much impact that they wanted it to roll out. They wanted to basically take away the name Women's Health and offer it as a solution for all of their team. And they're a social care agency, so they are predominantly women anyway, but they wanted the men to feel confident and that it was inclusive of them, which again was a great point. I took that on board. So we have that as well, and that's £6 per employee per month. And it's literally a wellbeing program. So they get everything that I've already mentioned. They get, well, not necessarily the workshops, although there's massive discounts for the workshops for those members, but they get the health clinic, they get the rest, reset, whatever. They get that workshop every month as well.
Yeah.
Must write that down. They get the clinic and they get the, whatever the third one is. Oh, the workshop. There's a workshop every month. And that's where, so it's different to the public workshops, but that's where we look at things like, and these are actually going to be rolled out this year as well to public for public consumption. But we look at things like tapping into your hormonal cycle for productivity and work-life. I call it work-life harmony rather than work-life balance, because again, when we look at things like caring responsibilities, predominantly it's women, but it's not just women. So I offer that kind of workshop. So we do look at caring responsibilities, work-life harmony, gentle productivity and gentle time management, just to enable a more feminine approach. It's not necessarily for women, but it's looking at how to do all the traditional stuff in a more feminine approach. So we look at lunar cycles. So when we're looking at productivity, we don't just look at the menstrual cycle, because obviously some women don't bleed for either medical reasons or through choice. Yeah. And it's really, really interesting. And we look at how our energy fluctuates and sort of leaning into the energy in terms of, you know, on your buoyant days, go and do all your promotion, go and do all your meetings. And when it's your kind of winter days where you just want to squirrel away, just do all your research, all of your review and planning stuff then. So we kind of do stuff like that. And it's really, I've had really nice feedback because it's such a different way of looking at traditional ways of working.
It really is.
Yeah, so that's kind of
Fault of to work in that way, and when your lower energy levels are dropping, it can be really hard to work and get that mindset and the positivity to be really kind of productive
yeah,
in that sense. But if you can work in that way and work smarter and use your high energy days to make sure that you're doing the things that, I don't know, that need that energy, and maybe it's meetings or going here or there, and using that research data
yeah.
home where you can sit down and be comfortable in your own environment, then it's working a lot smarter. I mean, I'm going to take that tip out of
Yeah.
the box.
Yay! Love it.
Sorry.
It makes a massive difference. It really
Ah,
does. Oh, you've disappeared off my
ah.
screen. I think it's my screensaver cutting in. There we go. That's better. Yeah, so my screensaver cuts in, I think, every 5 minutes. But yeah, it makes so much difference as well. So if there's one sort of takeaway for individuals, I would say to track things. Obviously, for women, it's different because you have loads of apps where you can track your cycle. But even for men and during the day as well, just track, because men have hormones. It's not just about sort of female hormones. They don't have quite as many as we do. They have like 2. We have 57 or something ridiculous. But it still applies. Track your energy levels. If you get to know your cycles and how you respond to different things, you can really kind of lean into that sort of more feminine way of looking at things.
It's like me, I go to the gym. I go to the gym not just to kind of lose weight, it's for my mental health, etc. And it kind of makes
Yeah,
energized for the day. And I know if I've gone to the gym and I cannot pull the weight that I'm normally pushing or pulling, for example, and I know that my menstrual
yeah,
cycle is on its way, because I cannot do it, I don't have the energy to do it. So one of my PTs said to me, drop the weight,
yeah,
higher reps, and you'll feel better that you've been and done something. So you're at least doing something, and I'll still feel them
yeah,
endorphins, etc. It's just working smarter in that sense,
yeah.
isn't
Yeah, it is. And one of my clients who I'm actually so I do still work with individual women. The time is kind of well managed, she says. But one of my individual clients at the minute, she can't run at certain points of her cycle. But at other points of her cycle, she's got 2 days where she is like Wonder Woman and she can go and run PBs. She can run 10K rather than 5K. She says the difference is astounding. So again, if you're tracking, she now knows that she can go to the gym
it?
and do like Olympic weightlifting stuff this week, but actually next week she doesn't do anything. She just does meditation. And we've kind of reframed. She really struggled with that because she was like, no, I need to be exercising for my mental health. I need to be doing this exercise, this exercise, this exercise. I was like, well, why don't we try and reframe journaling and meditation as exercise? And then when you're doing those 2 things, do them for 45 minutes that you would be spending in the gym. And it will just be as beneficial, but it's reframing that quite often in people's minds as well.
It really is. It's a good way. I would never have thought of that. That's a good way of doing it. It's a good little tip there, Sarah. Going to be starting that. I love a bit
You're
of
like,
yeah, I've learned 3
yeah.
things today.
And if I could, hey,
um, okay, so we've got 2 more questions left. How do you ensure that women's health concerns are addressed without reinforcing kind of gender stereotypes or discrimination in the workplace?
this is a cracking question. And we spent a lot of time, didn't we, umming and ahhing about how to answer it or whether to answer it. But it's a really important question. And it's something that I have spent a lot of time. I genuinely don't know how to answer it as such because I've come across actually so many different viewpoints. And there's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but all we can do is raise awareness. Now, there was 2 examples that sprung to mind when I read this question. I was like, oh, that's a bit triggering for me, and it was because when I first started out, I had probably one of the most aggressive phone calls I've had since I left work, as in since I started working for myself, and it was a guy who ran a company who on the face of it were quite kind of I wouldn't say they were male dominated, as I think probably about 40% women. And he actually turned around and said to me, oh, I have a brilliant menopause policy already. I now call it the Greg Wallace effect. He said, I have a perfect example of a menopause policy. He said, it's the same as my pregnancy policy. I don't employ women in their early 20s because they're going to go off and have babies. And now, if a woman over the age of 40 starts to whinge, I sack her. That's my policy.
Wow.
And I didn't have an answer for that. Yeah, my reaction was exactly that. And I just thought, and I tried to reason with him, and I tried to argue with him. And it was only afterwards, it was at the gym actually, and I was thinking, what could I have said to him? What could I have done differently to make him see that, well, not only is it wrong, it's pretty illegal, but what could I have done to make it, yeah, and then I just thought, you know what? It's not up to us, or it's not up to me to change people's perception like that. So in a day-to-day thing, if it was one of my customers, if it was one of my clients who'd said that to me, then I would approach HR. So if they had their own HR, I would talk to their own HR. If they didn't, I would probably go into your group or speak to you and Tracy and just say, look, this company really needs HR advice. And now I know you guys, that's exactly what I would do. I'd put a referral straight through. But it's companies like that, individuals like that, are not going to change their mind. And I think I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I don't want to work with people like that, because there was a similar. It was in a similar vein to, we don't have a problem. It's not recorded, but we don't have a problem. I know the girls in my team well enough to know if they have issues. Okay, lots to unpick here. But that was slightly different as well. So he was a brilliant employee. He was actually in the list of top 10 employees for 2023 or 20, no, it must have been 2023. He wore that badge with pride. His staff, they had a lot of wellbeing initiatives, and he didn't take my services up, which is absolutely fine. After that, we kind of did clash a little bit, but they now do offer menopause training for their staff. They haven't gone a whole hog. They don't do the full women's health stuff, but he now does recognise that actually it probably is something that he needs to look at. So it's the companies that still have those gender stereotypes. The only way we can break those down when it comes to women's health is just to keep talking about them. And I need to reiterate, and this was the big trigger thing about in my marketing and how I present. So I now have taken the word women's health out of my workshops, and I now just call them workshops, because actually they are for men just as much as they are for women. And I need to break down that barrier in my own head about it being women's health. They are issues that predominantly impact women. Obviously, the physical symptoms, it's the woman that is going through endometriosis or whatever, fibroids, whatever it is the issue, that is to do with the menstrual cycle. But it's actually raising awareness in general. And the more we talk about it, the more I don't talk about women's health in that kind of divisive way, sort of saying that this is women's health, these are workshops for women. So I now don't talk about that. So thank you. I learned something. That's kind of all I can do.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's actually really refreshing for me to look at it like that as well, because I think I was guilty of adding, not necessarily discrimination, I think, but generally adding that kind of barrier or that kind of differentiation between women's health being for women. And it isn't at all.
That's a good response. I like that. And we learn as we go along, and the more we connect with people and experiences, etc. And the more, like you said, we can't change people's mindset. We can't change people's characteristics. However, we can make people aware that what you are doing or what you're delivering is a good thing. And the fact that you've kind of taken that on board yourself with regards to the women's health and the rebranding of the actual training resources is really good, because when I said to you, I wasn't aware, although you work with employers with all types of employees, it's making sure that when understanding your business, it's not just women. You do work with male people, you have a whole diverse kind of company there. So no, that was a good response, Sarah. I like that. So
Thank you. And I've actually developed a menopause manual for men as well on the back of that as well. So I actually have a menopause manual for men that's available on Etsy.
Love that.
I haven't sold any yet, but it's available on Etsy.
Good idea. So we come to the last question. Have you seen any changes in the workplace culture since implementing women's health initiatives? If so, what are the improvements and what are the most noticeable improvements? Can you tell any stories or share something with us?
Um, yeah, so I think the most noticeable thing is the fact that it impacts massively on general well-being and general kind of cohesiveness in the team. So I don't have a lot of clients. I've never wanted to be a massive business, and I'd rather work um, sort of more intensely than other businesses. There are some businesses that I just do the lunch and learn workshops from, and the feedback from them is I used to be a service commissioner, so I'm still kind of review everything, get feedback on everything, shake things up a little bit if you need to. So I
Yeah.
always ask for feedback, and the feedback's always really good in terms of I feel so managers feel more confident to manage their staff, and I think that's a big thing that I always get told. The conversations are a lot easier to have, and actually, somebody even said to me when I said, "Do you find the conversations a lot easier to have?" They even said, "No, but I feel okay not having the conversations because you're there to have the conversations for me, so I don't have to have the difficult conversations." Um, and we are seeing a reduction in staff absences. So especially, and again, I don't want to reinforce gender stereotypes, but especially menopausal women, because the by talking about it, by raising awareness, coupled with so this was a company, the company that I'm thinking of didn't actually go all in for the intensive programs. Everything I offer can just be tailored, so you can pick bits, pick whatever they want to implement. This particular client just had an awareness raising workshop specifically for them. We combined two, possibly three of the, or two and a half of the workshops into a half day workshop for them. And then they had that, and they had the health clinics and the e-learning programs, but they didn't actually take up the e-learning programs. But we had quite a lot of clinic attendees, and they just bought into my public clinic. We didn't do specific clinics for them because it's a massive budget. And they only did it for 6 months, and they're going to renew next year. But we're going to have a session, I think it's next month, might even be March. I think it's March. We're going to have just a refresher, and then we'll start again in 3 months' time. But in the 6 months they were doing the clinic, they had 3 women who had repeated absences. One of them was on the verge of handing a notice in. She was completely disillusioned with her manager. She felt as if she was being picked on. And this is a really good organisation, but she felt as if she wasn't being understood. She was being picked on. And it was essentially hormonal changes, the stress that was causing her, the fact that her manager just didn't know how to talk to her about it because they'd actually been quite good friends as well. The fact that she just didn't know how to talk to her about it, and all of that was resolved just by her talking to me about it, me helping her to reduce her symptoms, and then giving the manager training on how to support and talk to individuals. So it's massive. It can be massively
Mm.
impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Education and awareness and people feeling more comfortable to speak to their employees, the more natural it becomes, the more you do it, the more kind of you learn
yeah,
go along, don't you? And like
yeah,
you, if someone's not open to learning and wanted to understand that, then you've got you as a person that can go in and take that hands on if need be.
yeah,
Sometimes might have someone that's male that don't want to have these conversations with women and because they may find it's
yeah,
intrusive in their kind of personal life and
yeah,
them as a person. So
yeah.
it's that alternative option as well, which is really good.
Yeah, and that's exactly so. It was a man that said that, and he was worried about being accused of um, sexual harassment. So that's why we talk a lot about sexual harassment as well in the workshops. That's why I run, or not why I run it, but that's one of the reasons and one of the things we cover: how to have the discussions about periods, but in a way that isn't creepy,
No,
for want of a better word.
no, and even with sexual harassment and the awareness on that at the moment and how kind of the law is changing around this at the moment as a subject in its own entity, it's
Yeah,
crucial that our managers are not put in a position that they are uncomfortable and not saying the right thing, wrong
yeah,
thing day, sometimes they would rather just delegate that to someone that is knowledgeable in that field and has the skill set to be able to communicate these kind of issues, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so we've come to the end of the questions now, and that's been really, really informative.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Is there anything you would like to kind of say before we finish our call today?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been brilliant. I can talk about periods and women's health all day. So thank you so much for inviting me on. But yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I'm obviously in the Facebook group. I'm in the LinkedIn group, and I will get better at doing stuff on there because I'm not great on LinkedIn. But if anybody's got any questions, then I'm more than happy if you tag me. I think I'm in there as me and also the company as well. So if you just tag me, I'll respond whenever I see them. I'm not great on social media, but if I see them, I'll respond. Or if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy just to give free advice as well, if needs be.
Perfect. That's really lovely of you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and
Thank you.
we'll let you know if there's any questions that come through. Take care.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you, thank you. Bye now.